We move on to Assemblymember Polanski.
Thank you very much, Chair. Deputy Mayor, if I can begin with you. So both the Mayor and the government have committed to making London a global centre, a global leading centre for green finance. What impact will this have on financial services, and how can we make sure that action is taken?
In terms of green finance, I mean, many of my colleagues here and on the panel have mentioned it's a huge opportunity area. Mayor is very ambitious on green finance. We want to double the size of the green economy of London within next decade. It's an area of absolutely huge opportunity. The mayor has set the target for London to be net zero by 2030. What that means is, in order to achieve that target, we'll require about 61 billion pounds worth of injection. In fact, on a more level, it could be up to 100 billion. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity where we can bring private and public sectors together.
So here's my concern. I spent a couple of weeks last month at COP, and while it was a fantastic opportunity and a vital discussion for the globe to have, I was aware of a lot of greenwashing that was going on the ground. The Mayor says in his draft budget that he wants his £61 billion. Now, I was really pleased to hear you then say from public and private investment, but actually in the draft budget, it just says to enable a major increase in private sector investment. What safeguards are there, and how can we as Londoners and as Assembly know that the money that we're accepting as private investment is ethical, that it's right, and that it's going to, to tackle the climate emergency and isn't just greenwashing?
Yeah, no, it's you're absolutely right. And that's one thing that one has to be very careful about, that ESG these days, I mean, it doesn't become just a buzzword in a glossy sort of corporate brochure, but actually it's genuinely done in the right kind of spirit. And I believe that the businesses, vast majority of the businesses are doing it in the right spirit. They see this not just as being responsible towards the planet and the environment, but actually genuinely see it as an economic opportunity. So what we need to do from City Hall, as we continue to do, is make it easier for them to sort of convene and sort of do business and invest in those areas. And that's what we are doing, trying to sort of bring projects together which are highly sort of investable, but the amount of the challenges, opportunity is huge, but also the challenge is huge, and that's why we've got to be ambitious, and we cannot do this alone. We have to bring along private sector with us.
Yeah, if you'll forgive me, I agree with your answer. I heard all the opportunities there. What I didn't hear, though, is what safeguards there'll be, or what checks and balances will there be to make sure that that private investment is coming from the right places.
Well, as it is already, I mean, you look at any kind of sort of procurement. I mean, if you're talking specifically, so for example, the procurement powers that the mayor has through TfL, through Metropolitan Police, etc. I mean, we believe in responsible procurement, and we use that to make a lot of changes, not just on sort of climate and recycling, etc., but also on good work. So, for example, so the companies that are supplying into GLA family organizations, for example, got to make sure that they are looking after their employees well, paying them fairly, providing them the right sort of working conditions, etc. Similarly, part of that sort of the whole thing is also looking at their environmental risk credentials as well. So this is all sort of weaved into the procurement strategy.
Thank you very much. And Alan, if I can just turn to you now. Obviously, Rajesh is your board's chairman, but from a London and Partners point of view, how do you see green finance and this private investment kind of conundrum?
Yeah, and look, money is neutral. Money is neither green nor dirty. It's what it's used for that is green or dirty. So if you've got money that came from something we might call dirty and it's going towards green, then it's always what it goes towards. And I think from my perspective, we're in a transition period where at the moment there is significant, but in the context of the trillions of pounds traded in London, relatively small amount of money going towards what we would call a green project. So, climate tech in London has got VC of about 28 billion behind it. That's great. I think phase two, though, and we're not here yet, but I can see we're in transition there, is towards it not being possible to raise money at anything like market rate to fund something which you haven't demonstrated is at least climate neutral. because that's the bigger thing, right? You know, it's where, because it's the price of money that defines what big companies invest in, and I don't think we're there yet. In terms of what we're trying to do, which I suppose is really the question, we went live in I think October, and I think I shared it with you, our green and sustainability investment product. And like a lot of what we do, what it's trying to do is to de-risk green and sustainable investment into London by giving people the information on how to do it better here than somewhere else. So that's a large amount of what we're doing. I think that the hope is that because we particularly feel that we have the ability to affect decision making in smaller and high growth firms who maybe don't have access to in-house strategy teams and all the rest of it, by focusing on those companies, we can support green disruption. London and Partners probably has less of a role in what I described as phase 2. That's going to be market driven by larger players and by particularly, I suspect, pension funds. But our focus is on trying to make sure that we de-risk green and sustainable investment into London, so that 28 billion of VC investment into green tech can become 60, 120, and so on.
Thank you. I think that's a really fair answer. The only thing I find objectionable, and maybe I've just misunderstood, is the idea that money is neutral in terms of, yes, it matters where it's going, but I think London has a moral and ethical responsibility to, therefore, accepting money that's come from exploitation or conflict or wherever it might be in the world. Then we have a duty to not accept that money and to challenge it.
I think we're probably in violent agreement. We may not be, so I'll test it, but I think we're probably in violent agreement. Look, if I've got a £5 in my wallet, I don't know where it's come from. The question for me as the person holding that £5 is what I do with it. It may have been used to fund something objectionable in the past. The question is what we do with it. And I think we're probably talking about two separate things. One is, you know, making sure that we've got the proper legal values and other controls on use of money in London, but on the question of do we have kind of enough green money in London, that's really a question of do we have enough green investment happening, if I'm making the right distinction. So your point about kind of, you know, money, you need to know where the money's come from. Yes, but that to me is a sort of a broader and separate question, which is an important question, but a broader and separate one. The question of kind of green money is really about what it's being invested in. It's what you're investing that money in. And the money may have been used, you know, because money is a fungible product. It may have been used for something else at some other point. But its investment is ultimately a demand side activity, not a supply side activity. So if you create the right green investment opportunities in your city, then the money flows to it, and therefore by definition it isn't somewhere else.
Yes, I agree. I think they are two separate questions, but I think they're inextricably linked, and I think it is important that we show that leadership. Thank you very much, Chair.